Today I'm going to show you how I shortened the forks on my café racer. This one is already finished and now I'll fix the second one and show you how I did it. While I'm at it, I will also change the oil. So before we start, I thought I must just tell you about some specific tools that you might prepare for before starting this task. Of course, you need oil that suits your fork. You will need a snap ring plier. There is one snap ring you need to remove. It's very hard to get to it without this specific tool. Inside of the fork, and this might vary, but my fork had this tube inside of it. It's 28 millimeters. And by flipping this around, doing some magic, I am able to lower the fork 28 millimeters. But instead, I made my own that is 38 millimeters. So I added 1 centimeters more. Okay, I will go into the details later, show you how it works. Sandpaper comes handy, strangely enough. Prepare for that. A hammer, shouldn't think that a hammer is necessary working on a fork. But yes, you do. What I didn't mention was, of course, you need screwdrivers, wrenches, and all kind of regular tools that you probably have already in your garage or workshop. Heat gun is actually crucial, at least it was for me. Strange. I'll show you later why this might come handy. And the strangest thing is that you need an IKEA table leg made of steel. And you may think IKEA table leg for repairing or changing a fork. Strange. Stay tuned and I'll tell you why. The first job is to drain the oil. Remove the drain plug at the bottom of the fork and get rid of all the oil. Then it's time to remove the bottom screw. This is a 6mm hex screw. Remember to get the washer, it might get stuck in there. Then take off the dust cap. You might find some rust and dirt where the dust cap has been. I added some oil there, let it stick for a while, then clean it all up. And then it's time to remove the snap ring. And then some more cleaning. I decided to do the rest of the job while the fork was on the bike. Makes it easier. I removed the spacer on top and then removed the spring. It gets a bit oily, so be careful. Then I took off the fork again and turned it upside down to get the inner part out. Not sure if this is really necessary, but just in case. And here you have the damper rod. We'll take a closer look at that later. And then it should be possible to pull the fork slider, the bottom part of the fork, away from the fork tube, the upper part. But as you can see, it's stuck. After many years of driving, the fork seal has probably got stuck inside there. So my solution was to heat it up with my heat gun. I heated up for around 1.5 to 2 minutes until it got so hot you couldn't touch it. Yeah, careful there, it's hot. And then I just pull almost as hard as I could. Make sure your bike is securely on stands before you do this. And there, I got it loose. Great! And here you can see all the parts. It's time to shorten the fork. Hey, wait a sec. That snap ring looks rusty, doesn't it? And then it's time to lower the fork. For me it was really easy. I could just remove the spacer on top. If you don't have a spacer there, you need to cut off part of the spring, and if you have a bigger spacer, you need to cut the spacer with the size you want to lower the fork with. Then I just put the spacer under the top of the damping rod, and the fork is lowered. Here is a simplified drawing of how it all works. The blue part is the spacer and the purple one is the spring. Here the fork is in the upper position, and here it is on the lower position where the spring is compressed. By removing the spacer on top and placing it under the top of the damping rod, I will lower the topmost position of the fork. This will reduce the total travel length for the damper, and if the spring is soft, there is a possibility for the fork tube to bottom out and crash into the bottom of the fork slider. Since I don't cut the spring, I can just revert the operation or shorten it less if needed. It's also possible to add more preload to the spring by adding back the spacer on top, but then the damper will be stiffer at the topmost position. I wanted to lower my forks a bit more than 28 mm, so I replaced the spacer with a pipe I had laying around, cut it to 38 mm, so I added 1 more centimeters of shortening. That means that the spring will be preloaded 1 centimeter, and that's just fine because the first centimeter of the damper was really loose, just barely leaning at the bike. The first centimeters gained no resistance, so I hope stiffening up the spring makes this better. And then it's time to assemble all the parts. And here comes the part you've been waiting for, the IKEA table leg. It happens to be that the inner part just exactly fits over the fork tube and can be used to push down the bushing. So sliding it over there, the tape I've just added to protecting from scratching the fork tube. Then it's just knocking everything in place. And I will be using the other part of the table leg to knock down the oil seal. Vroom, 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 vroom. Finally done with the forks. Yeah, quite much shorter. 3.8 centimeters really made a big difference. Should I test them? Seems to work. Then my next task will be to fit the headlight. Now that I have the level of the bike, I know exactly how I'm going to make my brackets for holding my café racer headlight. So stay tuned.